one of the big stories this past week. It happened around 5 days ago. We found out late Wednesday night that Jon Jones, who was supposed to headline UFC 200 opposite Daniel Cormier, was pulled from the card after USADA notified his team that he had failed an out-of-competition drug test on June 16th. Somewhat unprecedented here because this was just, again, 3 days before a landmark event, a historic event for the UFC. Jon Jones, Daniel Cormier, with their longtime rivalry at play. Jon appearing to be in great spirits in Las Vegas. I had asked him just hours before the news came out if he felt like he needed to get this fight under his belt in order to put last year's hit-and-run accident behind him. And he said unequivocally, yes, he needed this. And he doesn't get to put that behind him now. And so there are a lot of questions. Thursday morning, he met with the media alongside his manager, Malki Kawa, his publicist, Denise White. It was a tough sight to see. He was very emotional a couple times, had to leave the press conference to gather himself. Didn't say a lot as far as what transpired, as far as what the substance is, or was, I should say, but did apologize to the UFC, did apologize to Daniel Cormier, which I obviously thought was the right thing to do. And then we were left with a lot of questions unanswered. Later on that evening, Thursday evening, word broke that Anderson Silva, of all people, and they did reach out to Gegard Mousasi, and he was obviously, very much willing to take the fight. But at the 11th hour, Anderson Silva was able to pass all his medicals. Anderson Silva, who 2 months prior had gallbladder surgery, the former GOAT, the former UFC middleweight champion, took the fight on very short notice, fought Daniel Cormier, and now you know how that went. Cormier wins via unanimous decision. I want to talk to Malki Kawa about this unbelievable news story and a whole lot more. He joins us now via the magic of Skype. Malki, how are you?
I'm good, sir. How are you?
It is a historic day, and of course, I want to talk to you about Jon, but you are very much entrenched in the business of MMA. You represent some of the biggest fighters in this sport: Jon Jones, Anthony Pettis, Frank Mir, Carlos Condit, Derek Lewis. I mean, the list goes on and on. Really an impressive who's who. What's your reaction to the news?
I like how you put Derek Lewis in the top five of my clients.
The Black Beast is the man. The Black Beast is the man. I love that guy.
I love that too.
What is your reaction to the news that the UFC has been sold for $4 billion?
Well, I think for Lorenzo and Dana, that's awesome. You know what I mean? The $4 billion, the largest sports, transaction in the history of sports. That's, congratulations to them. How that affects us at the end of the day, we won't know until time really, plays this thing out. But one thing I can tell you is that, Ari Emanuel is just he's been a terrific guy to us, to me and Jon and my team and stuff. So, I look forward to working with him and seeing what that's going to be all about and going from there.
So you bring up a great point and a very important figure in this transaction, because Ari Emanuel, who some don't know, the character Ari Gold from Entourage, based on him, a very powerful and influential figure in the world of sports and entertainment from WME, is a big part of this. And he has been a part of the UFC from the sale 15 years ago to the Fox deal. But WME also represents UFC fighters, most notably Ronda Rousey and Jon Jones. Your client works with them as well. Is that still the case?
Yeah, I mean, we've had it was kind of like an indirect relationship where, we worked with each other for a while.
Is that Ari?
Huh?
Is that Ari calling you?
No, it's somebody else.
Okay. Go ahead.
No, so I mean, it's an interesting thing. We've had a really good relationship with them, and Ari obviously was responsible in opening some of the doors for us in some of the historic deals we did, which with Nike and Gatorade and things of that nature. So, like I said, he's always been good to us. He's always been good to me. He's a guy that I've called on the phone, numerous times and talked to him about whatever. And he's a very smart guy and just has a lot of things to offer anybody that works with WME. So, I mean, like I said, he's an agent. So the good thing about him is that he's kind of in my role, but for movie stars and, properties. So hopefully, that helps certain things going forward with the UFC in general.
But is that a conflict now that he's part of the ownership?
Forget the part of representing the fighters, because at the end of the day, they don't really handle the contract negotiations and things like that. It was more marketing and stuff of that nature. So for me, it's more about like, okay, you understand now my job as an agent, right? So, in the past, a lot of the times, you'd always hear, UFC executives hate agents and they don't want to deal with managers and all this other stuff. Ari is one in a sense, but for movie stars. So how that changes things, how that helps us when it comes to negotiations, what that really means, like I said, we really won't know. You know what I mean? When you spend $4 billion for something, you got to make money. So, I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. I really don't know at this point, Ari. Ariel, all I can say is that, what your hope for is that, or at least what I hope for is that the same guy I've dealt with over the last couple of years is the same guy that has some input on this thing.
Your slip up there is an interesting one because my big takeaway was that there's now another Ariel in this sport, and that pisses me off. I was the only one for a very long time, and now I have to share the pie with Ari Emanuel of all people. But honestly, one of my big takeaways was $4 billion. The fighters were worth more than we all thought they were. This thing is a fighter-based organization. If you don't have fighters, if you don't have draws, the UFC makes no money. It's not the Yankees, it's not the Knicks, it's not the Cowboys. Those are brands that will live until the end of our days. But the UFC, if there are no fighters, it goes down. We saw that a couple years ago. Last year they had a great year, tons of profits. So when you hear that $4 billion, are you saying to yourself the same thing? Like, wait a second, we have more leverage here. We should be asking for more. We should be getting paid more.
That's always been the case. When you say that when you just said that your statement was something to the effect of that we realize now that the fighters are worth more. I've always known that. I think everybody known that. I think fighters have known that. I think we've all known that. I don't think listen, they could have sold it for $2 billion.
Sure.
Could have sold it for $8 billion. I mean, at the end of the day, the number, the thing is worth whatever someone's willing to pay for it, right? Time will tell if this was a smart buy on these people's behalf, or if it was, you know what I mean, if they paid too much or maybe they paid too little. You know what I mean? But at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. The issue in MMA when it comes to pay is, people want this union and they want this idea of, let's pay guys more. But who are you really talking about? Are you talking about the guys people come to see, the guys that people come to see on fight night? Or are you talking about just the guy who shows up and fights anyway? You understand what I'm saying? So this is, at the end of the day, dude, let me put it to you like this is the way I see it. The UFC has done a great job in making it look like it's a league. In reality, it's still a fight promotion. Mm-hmm. You still have to promote fights, and you have to promote fighters. Mm-hmm. And those guys that are headlining these cards, the main and co-main events, deserve to get paid more. Absolutely, 1,000% across the board. I don't care who you're talking about, whether it's a fight night card or if it's a fight pass card or whatever it might be. Those guys at the top of the cards who we tune in to watch are the guys that drive this business. 1,000%. But that's something I think everybody should have known. If they didn't, well, maybe now they know.
Right.
They're worth it.
When's the last time you talked to Jon Jones?
Last night.
How's he doing?
I mean, he's upset. I mean, he's obviously very disappointed and very hurt.
Can you take me back to Wednesday? How did you find out?
Dude, so, I had earlier in the day, I was talking to Jeff Nowitzki about, Frank Mir and the situation with Frank Mir and the comments he made on your show last week. And, we were just going through that and talking about that. And then, we just went through the normal stuff. The team was getting ready to go train, and I get a call from Nowitzki. So I'm thinking he's calling me about Frank. And he's like, hey, dude, listen, I got to tell you, this is what's going on with Bones. I started laughing. I'm like, bro, all right, cool, for real, bro. Listen, talk to me about Frank. What's going on? And he's like, no, Mark, I'm being dead serious. I'm like, he goes, if you haven't gotten the email from USADA, you'll get it any second. And then, of course, I'm on the phone with him. So, I put him on speaker and I do one of these things and I go look and I'm like, oh, my God, I got an email from USADA. So I start looking at it and, that's how, basically I found out. And
were you the one who informed Jon?
Yeah.
What was that like?
It was heartbreaking, bro. It was really heartbreaking because, you tell him this and he's looking at me like, what are you talking about? He thought, that it couldn't be for real either. Like, this can't be happening. You know what I mean? The team thought the same thing. Like, it went from everybody was outside my room because my room and Jon's room were right next to each other.
Okay.
Right? Like there was only like a corridor, not a corridor, but it was like his room was here. You know what I mean? And mine was here. Uh-huh. And everybody was right in between both our rooms. So I could hear everybody outside. So when I got this phone call, I was like, bro, I can't believe this. And everybody was just excited. We're going through fight week. Things are going as planned. Everything is great. Weight cut is awesome. He's in great spirits. The team is fired up. Everybody's around him. We're doing our thing. And basically I walk out into the hallway and basically have to break the news to everybody. You know what I mean? We're not fighting. And it's just like, it went from excitement to straight, like, it's as if I told somebody, somebody died.
Yeah.
It got that quiet.
And obviously he was very emotional Thursday morning. You guys did that press conference, and I give you and obviously Jon a lot of credit for facing the music. Less than 12 hours later, a lot of people wouldn't do that. During the press conference, you said you couldn't really disclose much about the two substances. Is there anything more you can tell us about them?
See, Ariel, here's the thing. I want to explain to everybody why I don't disclose anything about it. It's not that we're trying to hide anything or that we're not trying to, get ahead of it and tell people what it is. I'm going to stand by our comments at the press conference. Jon, at no point in time, is a cheater, has never cheated, has never taken any substance that, he knowingly knew of that was on the ban list, right? Same thing I did with Yoel Romero. If you remember, I came on your show, I said, hey, guys, look, he didn't cheat. We have an idea of where this thing could have possibly came from. You know what I mean? And that's only because we get notified. It's not like you take something and you're like, all right, I'm praying to God that I hope we don't get caught. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
You take supplements. It could be anything. I mean, dude, you can take freaking, protein powder on a basic form, BCAAs, anything, right? And if it's, tainted with anything, because remember, the thing is, people don't understand, these supplements get made in manufacturing plants, and although it's just supposed to be protein, the batch before that might have been some sort of testosterone booster that had something illegal in it. So if they don't clean the machines out, now all of a sudden that can be in that batch. You know what I mean? Every person that's an athlete, I don't care who they are, across all sports, are responsible for what they put in their bodies. You see what I'm saying? So every athlete is responsible for that. Same thing with Yoel, same thing with Frank, same thing with, Carlos Ferreira, same thing with Bones. But what I've always said about USADA and what I've always tried to tell everybody is that, a guy who walks into GNC and buys some supplements and goes home and takes them and then he gets in trouble for that, isn't a cheater. He's not a person that's trying to cheat. You get what I'm saying? So before I can come out and say, hey, look, he took this at this supplement, I have to go get those supplements. I have to get them and put them in my hands so I can get them tested, right? If I come out and say, these are the products that we think he took and this is the substance he failed for, then the people at the stores will start to clear their shelves out and all that other stuff. So before that happens, I got to grab the stuff, get it, and have it in my hands, and then I can come out and say, look, hey, guys, here's what it is. Here's the substance we think, caused it. We're having it tested, and then, in a couple of weeks, we should know the answers and really get down to the bottom of it.
So are you saying that the two substances came from supplements?
It came from something. I can tell you that much. Whether it's a supplement, there's medication that he took that was prescribed to him by a doctor, that it could have come from there. There's a whole bunch of different things that lead to these things across all athletes. You see what I'm saying? Yep. So at this point right now, I don't know. I have an idea.
Okay.
But I have to get that tested before I can sit there and say it. One thing I can tell you is this: GAT has gotten a lot of heat for this. Yeah. And Mark Post is a person that I've known for the last 10 years. He's worked at other nutrition companies. He was actually the first person I ever did a deal with in MMA. And one thing I can tell you is that Mark Post, when we did this deal, knowing the history that GAT had in the post, he in the past, Mark Post has done his best to get all those things out of there, clean those supplements up. He ensured me that Jon's stuff was coming from manufacturing plants that only had substances that were legit. And so again, we don't believe that they came from a GAT product. Although I got to test everything and go through the process. You know what I mean? I don't think this is something that necessarily came from a GAT product.
And worth noting that GAT was the first company to back Jon after the hit and run accident when he lost all his sponsors. By the way, speaking of that, are we seeing the same thing again? Is he losing sponsors as a result of this? Where do we stand?
No, I mean, listen, I think this is a completely different story. It's one thing when you make a mistake, like, some of the stuff he's done in the past and, doing things that have haunted him in the past. The part that I think that people don't really get about this whole situation, when Jon came out and he was crying in that press conference and all that, it's not that, he got caught or he's off UFC 200. I think all of that plays a part, right? Like you get in trouble, but it's more about the fact that you work so hard to just do everything right. Get where I'm coming from and live your life a better way, and to prove to people that you're not this person that everybody, portrayed you to be. And then it's like, boom, this comes out of nowhere. And you're like, what the hell? Like, what do I got to do? And that's, I think, where a lot of disappointment and stuff came from. But as of right now, he's sponsored by Monster Energy. He's sponsored by GAT Nutrition, and he's sponsored by Everlast. I've spoken to everyone. They were just happy to know that it wasn't any type of street drugs. And that, obviously they understand the situation, and everyone's going to wait until, all the facts come out as the time goes on.
Unfortunately for you, you've been down this road before with Yoel Romero, with Frank Mir. With Romero, it ended up being okay. In fact, his suspension is up tomorrow, coincidentally. Correct. 6 months. Yeah. He still believes that he should have received nothing, and there's a strong case to be made there. With Frank Mir, it seems like he's going to take the suspension and pursue other avenues. I don't want you to be, a fortune teller here, but putting you on the spot, and I recognize that, what do you think happens? Is he gone for 2 years? Do you think it will be
Again, you got to remember the way this works is that you get a 2-year suspension if you're cheating, and that's what it is, right? If there's other circumstances that play into this stuff, obviously that can get reduced. Now, with the Yoel Romero situation, we ended up finding that there was a tainted supplement. Okay, Frank Mir's situation, Frank has other things in his mind that we may be able to prove or not prove. So that's why he's talking the way he's talking. You know what I'm saying? I don't necessarily agree with the way Frank, is talking about, asking for his release and taking a 2-year suspension. In my mind, if you didn't take it, they didn't do anything wrong. This shouldn't be the case, right? So I know for a fact that Jon isn't a cheater. I know for a fact Jon didn't take anything knowingly. That I'm gonna stand by till the day I die. I don't care how this thing turns out. You know what I mean? That's just one thing about this guy, is that he is not a cheater. So with that being said, if I can locate the stuff that he supposedly popped for in one of these supplements, then we have a good case, a good feeling that this will be, a reduced sentence. If we can't, then obviously it is what it is. So I can't tell you that until I actually have everything tested and then go from there.
And of course, you've been down this road before with Jon, and as is often the case, you start to receive some heat. People say that you're an enabler, that you're doing him no favors. What's your response to that this time when people come out and say that, he should get rid of you and that you're the problem? He's the one taking the stuff, but somehow you in Florida is the problem. What's your response?
Ariel, what do I say to that? You know what I'm saying? To be honest with you, what can I say to that? You know what I mean? Can I just keep saying that I'm in Miami and he's in Albuquerque when these things happen, and people put 2 and 2 together and realize that I'm not an enabler? I mean, think about this for a second, Ariel. You're talking about an 8-figure payday. 8 figures. Yeah. Conor could talk about whatever he gets and all that. Jon by far is the highest paid guy in the UFC, and the numbers that were shown that day for everybody from Brock all the way down, Jon was making more than all that. You know what I mean?
Wow.
So for me, it's like, we lost out on an 8-figure payday, including myself. I mean, I wasn't going to make 8 figures, but I was going to get a percentage of that.
Sure.
You know what I mean? The team was going to get a percentage of that. If you think that by any chance I'm going to sit here and be like, hey, man, take this supplement, then I'm just as stupid as anybody. I'm just as stupid as the people who think that I'm an enabler. I'm feeding him the damn steroids. And I know what you're referring to. And at the end of the day, he can make all the comments he wants. You know what I mean? When the media called for him to get fired, Lorenzo stuck by him. And you know what I mean? At the end of the day, there's obviously a reason for that. You know what I mean? And when you know the truth of what someone does behind the scenes, you don't make moves based on, somebody calling for someone to clean house. So at the end of the day, it's a stupid comment. The people who think that are stupid to me, and I just don't care. It doesn't really bother me anymore.
How does Jon proceed? Like, just as a human being with one blow after the next? Like, are you afraid? Like, what does he do on a Monday afternoon after losing out an 8-figure payday? Is someone watching him? I'm being honest here. Like, how? Because he was obviously distraught. I've never seen him like that. You don't see many athletes like that. What are we doing to make sure that he weathers this storm and is able to rebound again?
Well, but believe it or not, Ariel, everyone around Jon that cares about Jon, the real people that care about Jon, I'm calling them almost every hour on the hour, and I'm calling Jon every few hours. We've got a lot of things to do here. And one thing I can tell you is that his mindset hasn't made me believe that that anything, he's got a good family. His brothers, have gone through their own share of stuff. So everyone's supportive right now. You know what I mean? And I asked the same thing because I was really down too. You know what I mean? And today's Monday, and I just realized I got to get up, I got to go to work, and I got to move on. I think he's doing the same thing. I think he's right now, he has a task at hand. He knows what that is. We got to get to the bottom of this stuff and figure it out. And we got to face the music some more, and we got to keep moving. And I think that's all he can do. I don't know if there's anything else realistically he can do. It's depressing. After a while, you start to feel defeated. You know what I mean? And it doesn't help when you got people coming out and start to attack without really knowing what's going on. And either you got 2 choices. You can crumble, or you can you can fight. And I think that, one thing he said in that press conference, which is a true statement, is that he's a fighter and he's going to fight. And I think that that's really where we're at right now.
He popped up on social media late last night and said that he watched UFC 200, but didn't really offer any thoughts. Did he share any with you in particular about Daniel Cormier's performance against Anderson Silva?
I would have whooped that guy. The Daniel Cormier that showed up that night, I would have killed that guy. But I mean, listen, you know what? Can I tell you something? At the same time, you know what? We, as a team, we congratulate Daniel Cormier.
Yeah.
He deserves everything that he gets. I feel horrible that they cut his pay in half.
Yes.
I don't think that was warranted at all. I think the man deserved to get paid no matter what. I think the man deserved to get paid even more money going through all that. But I think now Daniel Cormier can understand, and so can fans around the world. When Jon went through that whole situation with UFC 151, OSP came around, right, and everybody called it the worst performance and all this other stuff. Although I thought it was a good performance, and so did a lot of other people that really understand MMA. But when you get an opponent switched on you last minute, and for DC it was really last minute.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's a tough adjustment to make. There's emotions that go into this, and mentally it can throw you off. And the fight was competitive in a way. DC got hurt by Anderson at one point. I mean, people started screaming and yelling. I mean, you thought maybe some, was going to go opposite of DC's way. So again, like I said, I'm happy for Daniel Cormier. I congratulate him. I think that he showed what a true champion is, and he continues to fight. And I think that's something he should be commended for. I don't think people should boo Daniel Cormier like that. You know what I mean? The way they do. But I also think that, cutting that man's pay like that, I think was just, a tragedy. That he didn't deserve that at all.
Yeah.
If that's what really happened.
Sure, sure.
Again, who knows what he got paid behind the scenes and all the other stuff. All that stuff is up for debate. But I'm just saying, that's my opinion.
That is a great point, and we'll be talking to him a little later on about that. Malki, we've run out of time. I wasn't expecting to have to talk about a UFC sale here today, but your insight was great. Thank you so much. I appreciate the transparency as well, and good luck to you guys. I wish the best to Jon, and I hope it all works out for him.
I appreciate you. Thank you, Ariel.
All right, there he is, Malki Kawa, the manager for Jon Jones and many others. A trying week for him and his team, but here they are. And wow, it's going to be interesting to see how this whole thing shakes out.